Okay, so in the last video we were talking about how if we decrease the reserve ratio, we increase the money supply because we're letting banks lend out more for every single dollar that they have in deposits. So they're going to lend out more and that's going to increase the money supply. And so in this video we're trying to answer the question, well, we know they're going to increase the money supply, but we want to be a little bit more precise. We want to know how much are they going to increase the money supply. So in the interest of time, I wrote out some definitions here, and they're written out in English and then in algebraic symbols. So I'm just going to kind of read through them and kind of make sure that we're on the same page. So money in this model is equal to currency plus demand deposits. So demand deposits, these are really checking accounts. That's just what econ calls a checking account. So a checking, I'll just write checking. Okay. And then money, this is the money supply. So I should probably write a little supply right there. Supply. Okay. So money supply is equal to currency plus demand deposits. And rather than rewrite this when I'm doing some math, I'm just going to write M is equal to C plus D. So C stands for currency, D stands for demand deposits, and M stands for money. Now, high-powered money is also sometimes called the monetary base. And it's just currency plus the reserves that banks are holding. So you can think of this as real, like as actual physical dollars, as what is high-powered money. So I'm going to use B for base as the abbreviation or the representation of high-powered money. And then C is currency again, and reserves are going to be R. So then we already talked about the reserve requirement, so I'm going to jump down here. And we know that the reserve requirement is just the amount of reserves that a bank has to hold divided by the amount of deposits that it has, the demand deposits. So I'm going to write RR for the reserve requirement, and we know just by definition that's equal to R, big R, capital R, divided by D. And then there's one other ratio that I'm going to use here, and it's the currency ratio. And that's just the amount of currency, the amount of actual physical coins and paper, divided by the amount of demand deposits. And so that we're just going to abbreviate as CR is equal to C divided by D. Okay, so now that all of that's done, these are all of our definitions. Now we're just going to do a little bit of algebra. So I'll just write algebra. And we're going to start with this top formula over here. So we're going to have M is equal to C plus D. And because we know that B is equal to C plus R, we're going to divide the left side by B, and we're going to divide the right side by C plus R. And you'll see why we're going to do this in a second, but we know that that's okay because these two things are equivalent. Okay, and now what we're going to do is we're going to divide everything on the right. We're going to divide the top and the bottom by D. Divide by D. And because we're dividing, the top and the bottom by D, we're not changing the value of this fraction. So we're going to have M over B is equal to C over D plus D over D divided by C over D plus R over D. So now we have a little substitution to do from these two ratios over here. We know that the currency ratio is C over D, and we have that. I'll try and use some colors to keep this kind of readable. So we have C over D right here, and C over D right here. So I'm going to go ahead and say now that M over B is equal to CR plus, and I'm going to leave this blank. Well, actually, no, I'm not. So we know D over D is 1. Because anything divided by itself is 1. So we have the currency ratio plus 1 over, we have the currency ratio again. And then this last thing here, this guy right here, R over D, remember, that is the reserve requirement. That's reserves divided by D. So we're going to have plus the reserve requirement. And now we know that if we multiply by B, and you know what, rather than rewriting this, I'm just going to erase and bring that B over to the other side. So if we multiply this entire thing by B, we can say that the money supply, M, is equal to this fraction times the base, times the monetary base, which is the actual physical amount of currency that's out there. So that's all that I'm going to do in this video. In the next video, we'll go work through some examples with numbers because you need to be able to do that.